When Elena pulled open the chrome handle of the mansion's walk-in freezer, she thought she was just grabbing another tray of imported sorbet. She had no idea she was about to expose the darkest secret inside the Harrington estate. A secret so cold, so calculated, that even the walls of the billion-dollar mansion would never feel warm again. What she found inside didn't just hint at danger. It revealed a plan built on greed, grief, and the perfect opportunity. A plan wrapped in silk smiles and crocodile tears. What first looked like a tragic household mishap, a new fiancé overwhelmed, two children who had wandered somewhere they shouldn't, was only the first step of something far more deliberate, far more monstrous. And what came after would shake the mansion, the city, and the entire country. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and comment where you're watching from. Now, brace yourself, because this is where everything begins. Elena steadied the crystal beverage tray in her arms, the cold sweat on her palms making the edges slippery. She had only been working at the Harrington mansion for 3 days, 3 long, nerve-wracking days, and already every shift felt like it was balancing on the edge of disaster. From the grand ballroom drifted the low hum of jazz, glasses clinking and refined laughter, a symphony of wealth celebrating Mr. Adrian Harrington's new clean energy tech empire. Politicians, celebrities, venture capitalists, and magazine darlings floated through the room like couture-wrapped ghosts. The kitchen contrasted sharply with the elegance of the party. Gleaming steel counters, marble floors polished to a mirror shine, storage drawers that appeared endless. Elena could have sworn the dishwasher alone cost more than her entire childhood home. "Keep moving," she whispered to herself, adjusting her crisp uniform. "Just survive this probation week." She walked toward the service hall, heart pounding every time she passed one of the mansion's framed art pieces worth more than she'd ever see in her lifetime. From down the corridor, she heard footsteps, expensive shoes clicking like tiny threats, accompanied by the low murmur of voices drenched in perfume that probably cost half her paycheck. Elena ducked her head instinctively when she passed guests. She didn't belong here, and she felt it in every breath she took. Then it happened, something she almost brushed off. A faint sound, a muted, hollow thump. She froze. It had come from the left side of the kitchen, right near the industrial walk-in freezer. She waited, listening. Nothing, just the mechanical hum of the compressor. Elena exhaled. "Probably the ice shifting," she murmured, turning away. But then another thump. Softer, shorter, more desperate. This time her blood went cold. She set the crystal beverage tray down, carefully, silently, and stepped toward the freezer. Her shoes made no sound on the marble. Her breath became shallow. Her fingers tingled. The hair on her arms lifted. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Her hand hovered over the massive steel handle. Her mind raced with explanations, rational ones, comforting ones, anything to avoid the possibility forming in her gut. A loose box, a shelf collapsing, a kitchen staff member trapped inside. But she saw no one enter. She would have heard. "Hello?" she whispered. No response. Just the steady, mechanical hum of the compressor. With a shaky breath, she gripped the handle and pulled. Cold air burst out like a slap, fogging the entryway. She stepped inside, peering through the haze, eyes adjusting to the bright fluorescent lights reflecting off rows of frozen delicacies. Then she heard it again, a muffled sound, a whimper. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She moved deeper inside, pushing past racks of dry ice crates and imported desserts. Something tugged at her instincts, the ones her mother always called her danger sense. That's when she saw it. Near the back wall, behind stacked cartons of frozen fruit puree, was a large metal bin. Except the lid was slightly ajar, and something inside shifted. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She reached out with trembling hands and lifted the lid. What she saw inside made her scream so hard the sound scraped her throat raw. Two small faces, pale, crying, and shaking violently, stared up at her. Adrian Harrington's children. Liam, age 5. Ava, age 3. Both wedged in a metal container barely large enough to fit them. Tears had frozen on their cheeks. Their lips were trembling, turning blue. Ava whimpered, "It's cold." Elena staggered back, heart slamming against her ribs so hard she couldn't breathe. What are you... How? She voice collapsed. She reached into the bin immediately, pulling the children out with frantic urgency, wrapping their shaking bodies inside her apron. They clung to her with weak fingers, their breaths shallow, bordering on hypothermic. "Oh God! Oh my God!" Her mind spun, searching for answers. How long had they been inside? Who put them there? Why wasn't anyone looking for them? She felt dizzy with horror. Then a thought stabbed through her panic like lightning. Where was Claire? The billionaire's fiancée, the woman who had arrived only 2 months ago with flawless socialite grace, an instant media darling, always smiling with perfect teeth and perfect timing. She claimed she adored the children, called them "my little angels," posed for family photos, brought them matching designer outfits. But her smiles never reached her eyes. Her affection always felt rehearsed. And she was the last person seen with them before the launch party started. Elena swallowed hard. She needed to get the kids warm, now. She rushed out of the freezer, slamming the door behind her. She cradled the children tightly, heading straight for the emergency warmth station near the laundry wing. But halfway down the hall, she froze. Because standing at the far end, perfectly still, was Claire. A glass of champagne dangled from her fingertips. Her red dress shimmered under the chandelier light. Her expression was unreadable. Until she spoke. "Oh," she purred softly. "You found them." The blood drained from Elena's face. Claire took one step closer, her heels clicking like the tick of a countdown bomb. Her smile widened, slow, sharp, icy. "You weren't supposed to open that freezer tonight." A chill shot down Elena's spine. The children whimpered against her chest. Claire raised her glass slightly as though making a toast. "Well," she whispered, "I suppose the game begins sooner than I planned." Elena couldn't move, couldn't speak, because she saw it clearly now, the truth lurking behind Claire's perfect smile. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a moment of carelessness. It was a plan. Cold, calculated, deadly. And Elena had just ruined it. Elena didn't dare breathe. Claire's silhouette glowed under the chandelier like something carved out of ice. Her dress glittered, her posture perfect, her champagne glass steady, as if she were posing for one of her carefully curated photo shoots. But there was something new in her eyes. A crack in the mask, a flicker of something sharp, predatory, calculating. Liam whimpered weakly against Elena's shoulder. Ava clutched the fabric of Elena's apron, trembling so hard her tiny teeth clicked. Elena tightened her grip protectively. Claire's gaze dropped to the children, and for a moment Elena swore she saw annoyance, pure, irritated annoyance, flash through her perfectly painted face. "You're freezing them," Elena choked out, her voice raw with disbelief. "They could have died." Claire sighed dramatically, swirling the champagne in her glass. "Oh, please, you're being melodramatic," she said, stepping closer. "The freezer cycles regulate temperature. They weren't in danger." Elena's stomach flipped. She wasn't sure what horrified her more, Claire's words or the casualness with which she said them. "You put them in a metal storage bin, like they were leftovers." Claire arched a brow. "Is that judgment from the help?" Elena flinched, but didn't look away. Claire lifted her glass and took a slow sip of champagne. "Their father wanted them kept out of sight tonight. This launch party is important. There are billions on the line. Investors don't like chaos." Chaos. So that was what Claire called two children shivering on the edge of hypothermia. Elena swallowed, her throat burning. "You could have kept them in a guest room, a playroom, with blankets." Her voice cracked. "Not a freezer." Claire's smile thinned. "I Q&A'd my decisions," she said, coldly. "She didn't last long." Elena's blood ran cold. Ava whimpered again, her body shaking uncontrollably. The sound seemed to grate against Claire's ears. She winced, then rolled her eyes. "Honestly, they cry over everything. It's exhausting." Elena felt something inside her snap. Fear, shock, fury, they all collided in her chest. These weren't just children. These were babies. And Claire had looked at them like they were nothing. "Move," Elena said, shakily, stepping past her. Claire's arm shot out, blocking the hallway. The champagne glass never tipped. "You're not taking them anywhere." Elena stared at the woman as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Claire's perfume, sweet jasmine layered over deeper musk, felt suffocating in the narrow corridor. "You need help," Elena whispered. Claire laughed. Not a playful laugh, not a nervous laugh. A genuine, unbridled laugh, the coldest sound the mansion had ever heard. "Oh, sweetheart," she purred, "I don't need help. I need order." Her eyes flicked to Liam and Ava. "And their complications." Elena's hands trembled, but she tightened her hold around the children, stepping back. "I'm reporting this," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm telling Mr. Harrington." Claire blinked slowly, then smiled. "You think he'll believe you? A maid hired 3 days ago?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Adrian barely trusts the staff he had for a decade." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Claire wasn't wrong. Adrian Harrington was polite, distant, always preoccupied. He didn't know Elena's last name. Probably hadn't noticed she existed. But this was different. "You harmed his children," Elena insisted. "That's not something anyone can hide." Claire tilted her head, amused. "Sweet girl, you really don't understand this world, do you?" She stepped closer, her voice soft and velvet-wrapped. "Men like Adrian don't want problems. They want solutions. Perfect optics, perfect families, perfect wives." She tapped her chest lightly. "Like me." Elena couldn't speak. Claire continued, voice smooth as silk. "If I say the children wandered off, he'll believe me. If I say a staff member left the freezer unlatched, he'll believe me. If I say you were negligent," her smile widened, "he'll believe every word." Elena's knees weakened. Claire leaned in, whispering, "Your job ends tonight if I say so." A tear slipped down Ava's cheek, her little arms tightening around Elena's neck. That tiny, instinctive cling, that was what broke Elena's paralysis. She took a step back. "You won't scare me," she whispered. Claire's face hardened, finally cracking. "You should be scared," she said sharply. Another step back. Elena's voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "I'm taking them to the nurse's station. If you want to stop me, you'll have to move me yourself." For the first time, Claire's confidence flickered. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tensed. She didn't step aside, but she didn't move forward either. Elena adjusted her grip on the children and edged past her, keeping her gaze forward, refusing to break.
When she passed Claire's shoulder, she felt a slight, cold breath against her ear. "You're making a mistake, sweetheart. A very big one." Elena didn't answer. Her legs felt like rubber, but she kept walking. Down the hall, around the corner, up a small service staircase. Every step felt like dragging through quicksand. Her heart pounded in her ears. The children moaned weakly, their limbs stiff with cold. She had to get them warm, now. She pushed open the door to the laundry wing, a quiet corridor far from the bustle of the party, and half ran toward the emergency warming unit the staff used on winter days. She set Ava and Liam in front of the heater, rubbing their arms, their legs, their tiny hands. "Stay with me," she whispered desperately. "Don't fall asleep. Stay with me, baby. Stay awake." Ava's little head wobbled. Liam's teeth chattered. Tears blurred Elena's vision. "Please," she whispered, "just hold on." As the heater hummed to life, blowing warm air over their frozen skin, Elena grabbed a stack of towels from the shelf and wrapped the children tightly. They whimpered, but their skin began to lose their terrifying blue tint. Only then did Elena collapse onto her knees, burying her face in her hands. She had worked here 3 days. 3, and she had already stumbled into something deadly, something intentional. She wiped her eyes quickly. Not now. She needed them stable. She checked their breathing, steadying, shallow but improving. And then, footsteps echoed down the hallway, slow, heavy, controlled. Elena's blood ran cold. She turned. Standing at the end of the hallway was Adrian Harrington, billionaire, father, and a man who hated 2 things above anything else: chaos and surprises. His expression was unreadable as he glanced from Elena to the trembling children, to the towels, to the heater. "Elena," he said quietly. "What happened?" Her throat tightened. Beside him, almost hidden in the shadows, was Claire. Her eyes were wide, wet, perfectly terrified. She clutched her chest dramatically and trembled. "Oh, Adrian, thank God you're here," she whispered. She hurt them." Elena go cold. "No!" But Claire stepped forward, tears rolling down her face like a woman performing a tragic opera. "She locked them in the freezer." Elena's heart shattered. Claire's voice broke. I tried to stop her." Adrian's eyes snapped to Elena, dark, cold, disbelieving. "Is that true?" Elena's breath caught in her throat, because she could see it. Claire's lies settling into Adrian's mind like poison, and Elena realized something horrifying. She wasn't just fighting for her job. She was fighting for the truth, for the children, for her own future, for her life. She lifted her chin. "No," she whispered. And for the first time that night, Adrian Harrington stepped fully into the light, and the real battle began.
Sophia didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the freezer door swinging open, felt the burst of frigid air hitting her face, heard that faint knock she now knew wasn't a trick of her imagination. She sat upright on her narrow staff bed, the glow of her phone screen casting cold light across the room. She scrolled through articles about the Whitmore family, piecing together fragments of information she hadn't bothered looking at before. Pictures of Damien smiling in tailored suits, Claire shimmering like a glass figurine on his arm, and, most importantly, photos of his children, Eden, age 7, and Miles, age 5. Children she had yet to see in person. Children who, according to every glossy article, lived quietly with their devoted soon-to-be stepmother while the billionaire worked tirelessly on his new project. Sophia felt a chill crawl up her spine. If they lived here, if the media spoke of them like they were loved, then why had she not seen a single sign of them in this enormous mansion? Not a misplaced toy, not a scribble on a fridge, not a giggle echoing down a marble hall.
Nothing. She shut off her phone, then opened it again 2 seconds later. She couldn't shake the memory of that small cry, sharp and desperate, coming from behind the freezer door. She remembered how Claire had appeared instantly, as if materialized from thin air, her breath cold, her eyes frostier than the metal around them. And the way Claire had gripped her arm near the end of their confrontation, nails digging into Sophia's skin. Go home, Sophia. Not go rest, not take a break. No, go home. A dismissal, disguised as concern. But Sophia couldn't leave, not until she understood what she had almost stumbled into. The sound of footsteps outside jolted her upright. A shadow flickered under her door. Then, a soft knock. Sophia, are you awake? It was Michael, the head of household staff. Sophia's stomach twisted. Yes, 1 sec. She opened the door to find him wringing his hands, his expression tight. In the hallway's dim light, his usual calm demeanor appeared cracked. Tomorrow, he whispered, Claire wants you assigned to the East Wing. Sophia blinked. But no one goes to the East Wing. Exactly, he murmured. Her heart pounded in her ears. Why me? He hesitated. Claire says she wants to evaluate how well you manage the quieter parts of the house. That made no sense. The East Wing was practically abandoned. Even the cleaning schedules avoided it. Sophia knew this because she'd asked earlier that week, and one of the maids had quickly muttered, "No need, it's not used." Sophia tried to swallow her rising fear. Is Mr. Whitmore aware? Michael hesitated a fraction too long. Damien doesn't supervise staff assignments. Claire does. Sophia thought of Claire's icy smile, that glimmer of something unnervingly sharp behind her eyes. Michael, Sophia whispered, does something feel off to you? His jaw clenched. Your job, Sophia, is to do what you're instructed, nothing more. Michael! He cut her off, voice dropping. You're new. Let me give you one piece of advice. Don't looking for things you're not meant to find.
Her skin prickled. Like the freezer? His gaze snapped to hers. For a moment, just a moment, fear flickered in his eyes. Real fear. Good night, Sophia, he said abruptly, and turned away. She watched him walk down the dark hall, his shoulders hunched, as if something heavy pressed on him from behind. Something he couldn't say. Something he was afraid to say. Morning arrived too quickly. Sophia dressed in silence, slipping into her uniform and pinning her hair back. Her hands were trembling. She tried to steady them, inhaling deeply as she stepped into the main corridor. The mansion was quiet, too quiet. Despite its size, the Whitmore home was usually filled with movement. Caterers prepping for Damien's events, staff rushing between errands, security murmuring into radios. But today, nothing. Even the air felt still. As Sophia approached the dining hall, she noticed Claire sitting alone at the head of the table, wearing a crisp cream dress. Her hair was pinned back flawlessly, her porcelain-like face calm as she sipped herbal tea. "Good morning, Sophia," Claire said, her voice lilting but her eyes sharp. "Good morning," Sophia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Claire's gaze slid over her with calculated interest. "You slept well, I hope. Big day ahead." Sophia forced a nod. "Yes, ma'am." Claire set her cup down gently. "When you're done bringing out Damien's breakfast tray, I'd like you to begin cleaning the East Wing. Start in the children's rooms." Sophia froze. Children's rooms. Rooms she didn't even know existed in that wing. "Of course," she said quietly, masking her dread.
But Claire didn't miss a thing. Her smile widened, sweet, soft, deadly. "Don't worry, they're not in there. They've been staying with their grandmother." Liar. She felt it instantly. Something in Claire's voice was too smooth, too rehearsed, too deliberate, like she had practiced that line in the mirror. She lowered her eyes. "Yes, ma'am." "Good girl," she murmured. Every hair on her arms rose. An hour later, tray delivered, dishes washed, and nerves frayed, Sophia slowly approached the East Wing staircase. The first step groaned. The second echoed. Dust coated the banister, a thin gray film untouched for months, maybe years. She felt as if she were walking into a sealed tomb. Halfway down the hall, she reached a pair of small double doors, painted soft blue, decorated with faded star-shaped stickers. Her breath hitched. Children's rooms. She pushed the door open carefully. The inside room was frozen in time. 2 small beds, a bookshelf half empty, stuffed animals arranged in a neat row. Too neat, more like display pieces than toys once loved. She stepped in, her heart squeezing painfully at the sterile perfection of the room. No mess, no signs of life, no warmth. As if someone had erased the traces of both children. She crossed the room, scanning for anything, one object, one clue that felt out of place. She opened the closet. Nothing. She checked under the beds. Dust. She opened the drawers. Empty. Then she noticed something odd. A vent near the floor. Too large to be just a standard air vent. A small latch on the side. Hidden unless you crouched low. Her pulse quickened. She knelt and pulled the latch. The vent cover shifted with a soft click. And a tiny scrap of fabric fell out. Her blood ran cold. It was fleece. Blue fleece. With dinosaurs printed on it. The kind a little boy might wear. Her hands shook as she pulled out more. A torn sleeve. A small sock. A soft mitten. All children's clothing. All shoved behind a vent. All hidden. Her breath came fast and unsteady. She reached deeper, and her fingertips brushed something cold. A metal latch. A door. A hidden compartment behind the vent. Sophia's heart pounded so loud she could barely hear. She hooked her fingers behind the metal edge and pulled it open, only to freeze in place. Inside, in cramped, horrifying stillness, was a child's drawing. Crayon. Messy. Shaking lines. 2 small figures huddled together. A big red square drawn around them, like a door. And next to them, a woman. Tall. Smiling. With ice blue eyes, and written in uneven handwriting beneath it. Claire said, "Be quiet." Sophia dropped the drawing like it burned her. Her legs nearly gave out. The freezer, the knocking, Claire's sudden appearance, the way everyone avoided this wing, the absence of Eden and Miles. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Something terrible had happened in this house. And Claire was at the center of it. Sophia pressed a shaking hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. She knew 2 things with absolute clarity. The children hadn't gone to their grandmothers. And whatever Claire had done, she wasn't finished. Sophia had uncovered something she wasn't supposed to see. And now Claire would make sure she never looked again.
Sophia staggered backward from the vent, her breath shaking. The horrifying crayon drawing still burned into her mind. Claire said, "Be quiet." Her hands trembled uncontrollably as she clutched to the edge of the small dresser to steady herself. The room felt colder, too cold, as if an invisible draft seeped through the walls, carrying with it the echoes of children who had vanished without a trace. She shut her eyes for a moment, willing her heart to slow down. But then, creak, she froze. The sound came from the hallway. Soft, slow, measured. Someone was right outside the children's room. Sophia's pulse hammered. She quickly pushed the vent cover back into place, hiding the torn clothes and the drawing, and forced herself to breathe evenly. She grabbed a feather duster and pretended to wipe the dresser just as the door creaked open. Michael stood there. His eyes darted around the room like he expected something or someone to leap out at him. "Sophia." His voice was low. Too low. "What are you doing?" She swallowed hard. "Claire asked me to clean the east wing." Michael's gaze flicked to her shaking hands, then to the vent, which she had done her best to close quietly but hadn't fully latched. His expression tightened. "Sophia," he said again, closing the door behind him, "you shouldn't be in here, not like this." "But Claire told me—" "I don't care what Claire told you," he hissed, stepping closer. "You're supposed to stay out of this room." Sophia recoiled at his urgency. "Michael, what's going on? Why is everyone so afraid? Why is no one talking about the kids?" "Stop!" he snapped, his voice harsh but trembling at the edges. "Just stop asking questions." She stared at him, stunned. Michael had always been calm, collected, the kind of man who seemed to run on measured breaths and perfect posture. Now he looked rattled, pale, and deeply frightened. "Michael," she lowered her voice, "I heard knocking from the freezer last night." He shut his eyes tightly, jaw locking. "I opened it. I think Eden and Miles were inside at some point." Michael's eyes shot open. Fear, real fear, flashed through them. "You didn't see anything," he said quickly, stepping closer, lowering his voice to an urgent whisper. "You didn't hear anything. You were never in this room." Sophia's chest tightened. "Michael, this is serious. The kids might be—" "Gone," he finished quietly, his eyes haunted. "Gone, Sophia, and nothing you do will bring them back." Sophia's breath hitched. "What do you mean, gone?" Michael shook his head, taking another step closer as if to physically prevent her from speaking any louder. "They left," he said stiffly. "They're with their grandmother now. That's all you need to know. That's all anyone needs to know." "But that's not true," Sophia whispered, her voice shaking. "I saw what was behind the vent." Michael froze completely. For a long, agonizing moment, he didn't speak. Then he let out a trembling exhale. "You need to leave," he said, suddenly firm. "Today. Pack your things and go. If Claire asks, tell her your mother fell ill or anything. Just go." "Michael!" "No!" His voice cracked like a whip, echoing too loudly in the sterile, childless room. His eyes widened in panic, and he lowered his voice again. "You don't understand what Claire is capable of." Silence swallowed the room. Sophia felt the temperature drop as dread curled around her ribs. "What did she do?" she whispered. Michael's throat bobbed. His eyes glistened with something between guilt and terror. He wanted to tell her. She could see it in the way he clenched his fists, the way his lips parted, but no words came out. But before he could speak, another sound drifted down the hall. Footsteps. Not soft this time. Sharp. Confident. Echoing through the east wing. Claire. Michael stiffened like he'd been hit with electric current. He stepped closer to Sophia and whispered firstly, "You didn't open the vent. You didn't find anything. You were dusting. That's all. Remember that." Sophia nodded shakily, though panic clawed at her throat. The footsteps grew louder. Michael turned toward the door just as Claire appeared, her silhouette framed perfectly in the doorway like a scene from a thriller film. She wore a fitted white dress. Her expression was serene, but her eyes glinted with something colder than the freezer downstairs. "Well," Claire said lightly, "isn't this a surprise?" Sophia swallowed hard, forcing a professional smile. "Ma'am, I was just dusting the room." Claire stepped in slowly, gracefully, like a predator entering a cage. She looked around the room with a soft sigh. "I hate this wing. So lonely. So still." Sophia kept her eyes down, but she could feel Claire watching her, studying her. Michael stepped forward. "Claire, I was just checking to make sure she was following the cleaning protocols." "Of course you were," Claire said, smiling slightly. "You're always so diligent." Michael's jaw tightened ever so slightly. Then Claire turned her attention fully to Sophia, and the air grew sharp enough to cut.
"How are you feeling, Sophia?" Claire asked. "You look a bit pale." Sophia forced another smile. "Just a long morning, ma'am." Claire tilted her head. "Michael, doesn't she look a bit shaken?" Michael cleared his throat. "She's fine. Just adjusting to the mansion." Claire stepped closer to Sophia, her perfume floral and sickeningly sweet. She brushed a strand of hair behind Sophia's ear, a gesture that should have felt tender, but instead sent a cold wave through her entire body. "You know," Claire murmured, "working in a home like this requires a certain discipline." "Yes, ma'am," Sophia said softly. "A certain ability to mind your own business." Sophia nodded. "Of course. And a certain loyalty." Sophia's heart thudded painfully. Claire's smile deepened. "I trust you understand that." Sophia tried to nod, but her neck felt stiff. "Yes." Claire held her gaze for a long, suffocating moment. Then she stepped back, smoothing her dress. "Good. I'd hate to think you were overwhelmed." "I'm fine," Sophia whispered. Claire's expression brightened unnaturally. "Wonderful. Then I'd like you to finish up here and head to the basement storage. We keep spare uniforms down there." Sophia felt her stomach drop. The basement. The freezer. Claire was sending her there on purpose. Michael's eyes went wide. "Claire, that's not necessary." Claire cut him off with one raised eyebrow. "Michael, don't interfere." He clenched his jaw. Claire turned back to Sophia. "I expect you down there in 10 minutes." Sophia's heart raced. "Yes, ma'am." Claire smiled, satisfied. "Good girl." She left the room with quiet, echoing footsteps. The moment she disappeared around the corner, Michael grabbed Sophia's arm. "Listen to me," he whispered harshly. "Don't go to the basement." Sophia stared at him. "Then what do I do?" He looked torn, desperate. "Leave. Now, before she realizes you're not coming." "And then what? What about the kids? What if they're still alive?" Michael's face twisted with pain. "Sophia." Footsteps sounded again, distant but coming closer. Michael let go of her arm. He whispered, "If you stay, she'll make sure you disappear too." Sophia's breath caught. "Run. Run while you still can." But Sophia didn't move, because even as fear clawed at her, even as danger closed in on all sides, she couldn't walk away. Not when there was even the slightest chance Eden and Miles were still somewhere in that mansion, still trapped, still waiting. She turned toward the hallway, her decision made. Whatever Claire was hiding, whatever she had done, today would be the day Sophia found out, no matter the cost.
Sophia stood frozen in the hallway long after Michael slipped away, his last trembling words echoing in her mind like a warning bell she couldn't ignore. Run before she makes sure you disappear too. But her feet wouldn't move. Instead, she found herself staring down the long, polished corridor of the East Wing, the wing that had once belonged entirely to Eden and Miles. The air felt heavier here, colder, still carrying the shadows of children's laughter that had been wiped out too abruptly. The house seemed to hum around her, every chandelier, every marble tile, every glint of gold whispering a single truth. She was in danger. Real, steady, icy danger. But so were Eden and Miles, and the fear that pressed against her ribs wasn't enough to stop her. Not yet. Sophia inhaled deeply, forcing her shoulders to steady. She tucked the feather duster under her arm, stepped into the hallway, and made her way toward the main staircase. Every footstep felt amplified, bouncing off the mansion's cavernous silence. Halfway down the staircase, she caught the faint echo of voices drifting from the grand foyer. Claire's voice, unmistakable, sharp, controlled. And make sure the staff stays out of the lower levels. They have no reason to be there. A man replied, someone Sophia didn't recognize. But, Mrs. Whitmore, the freezer technician said, I don't care what he said. Nothing in that basement needs adjusting. Do you understand? Silence. Good. Sophia's stomach tightened. Claire was doubling down, blocking access, fortifying whatever she'd buried. When Claire's heels clicked away from the foyer, Sophia stepped back into the shadow of the staircase, hidden behind a thick velvet curtain. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She needed a plan. Going to the basement alone wasn't bravery, it was suicide, and confronting Claire outright would guarantee she'd disappeared as fast as the children had. Sophia reached for her pocket, pulling out the only weapon she had, her phone. No service, not in the basement, not in certain wings of the mansion. Claire must have known exactly what she was doing. But upstairs, near the windows, that was different. Sophia quietly climbed the stairs again, this time heading for the West Wing, where both Michael's room and the guest rooms were located. If she could get to a window, she could make a call. Maybe to the police. Maybe to the children's grandmother, if she even existed. Maybe to anyone who could intervene before Claire realized she was plotting. But as she reached the top step, going somewhere? Sophia flinched so hard her phone nearly slipped from her hands. Claire was leaning against the wall, arms crossed loosely like she had all the time in the world. Her immaculate white dress shimmered beneath the dim lighting. Sophia swallowed painfully. Ma'am, I was heading to get the spare uniforms, like you asked. Oh, Claire raised an eyebrow. Funny. Because the uniforms are in the basement. And yet, she tilted her head, you're walking upstairs. Sophia's throat dried. I got turned around. The layout here is complicated, Claire finished. Sophia nodded quickly. Claire smiled, but the expression held no warmth whatsoever. It can be, but I'm sure you'll learn. She stepped closer, and Sophia felt her heart begin to gallop. You know, Claire said softly, I noticed something earlier. Something that concerns me. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Your curiosity. Sophia froze. Curiosity. The word felt like a knife held casually near her throat. This house, Claire continued, her voice laced with sugar, has been through delicate times. She brushed an invisible speck of dust off her wrist. And I expect every member of the staff to respect boundaries. Sophia kept her gaze low. I understand. Do you? Claire's voice sharpened, so faintly one could miss it, but Sophia didn't. Because you were in the East Wing longer than the cleaning should take. And Michael looked bothered. Sophia's pulse became a drumbeat. Mrs. Widmore, I didn't mean any. Intent is irrelevant, Claire whispered. Impact is what matters. Sophia's voice trembled. I'm sorry. Claire studied her for a long, chilling moment. Then she stepped closer, so close that their faces were only inches apart. Let me make this crystal clear, Claire murmured. If you ever enter that wing again or speak to Michael without my permission, you won't have a job by sunset. Sophia nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Claire smiled, satisfied, predatory, then turned on her heel and disappeared down the hall with the sound of echoing confidence. Sophia didn't breathe until she was out of sight. When the hallway grew still again, she finally allowed a shiver to rip down her spine. She moved quickly now, walking purposefully toward the west wing window overlooking the courtyard. When she reached it, she pulled out her phone again. One bar. One tiny bar. Please, please. She dialed 911. The bar flickered, then disappeared. Call failed. No, 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 no. She tried again. Failed. Again. Failed. Claire must have had cell signal dampeners installed. She pressed her hand to her forehead, desperate. Think. Think. She couldn't call out. She couldn't leave. Claire was watching. Michael was terrified. The other staff had gone silent, either too afraid or too loyal to speak. Sophia sank onto the small seating nook beneath the window, her hands shaking. Then her eyes drifted toward the courtyard. A maintenance truck was parked at the far end, its side door open, wires spilling out, 2 workers inspecting the generator system. A backup generator, likely connected to the freezer, to the basement, to everything Claire wanted hidden. But one detail stood out. The workers weren't security. They weren't part of Claire's carefully curated world. They were outsiders, and outsiders meant opportunity. A plan sparked in Sophia's mind. She couldn't call for help, but she could ask for it. Sophia rushed down the staircase as quietly as she could, hugging the walls to avoid crossing paths with Claire. When she reached the ground floor, she slipped through the side door connecting the kitchen to the courtyard. Cool air hit her face like relief, and she breathed in deeply for the first time since morning. She approached the 2 men cautiously. "Excuse me," she whispered urgently. The older man looked up. "Yes? I work inside. I need your help." Before she could say more, the younger man's eyes widened. He stepped slightly forward, lowering his voice. "Are you okay?" Sophia nodded, though tears burned her eyes. No, I'm not." The older man grabbed his toolbox. "What's going on?" Sophia hesitated, words formed but stuck in her throat. How could she explain? That the children were missing? That Claire was dangerous? That this wasn't just a wealthy family with secrets, it was something darker, heavier, lethal. She opened her mouth, but... Sophia? Her blood turned to ice. Claire. Standing by the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The 2 men stiffened instantly under her gaze. Claire's smile was small, controlled, deadly. "Is there a problem?" Sophia felt her knees weaken. "No, ma'am," she whispered. "Just checking if they needed anything from the kitchen." Claire nodded slowly. "Good, because we wouldn't want any confusion." Sophia swallowed the rising panic. "Come inside," Claire said. "We have something to discuss." Sophia followed her in, feeling the men's worried eyes on her back. Inside the mansion, the door shut with a heavy click. Claire walked ahead, heels sharp against the marble floor. Sophia felt the walls closing in. As they approached the dining room, Claire slowed. Then she turned around, and her smile vanished. "You're becoming a problem, Sophia." The words sliced through the air like a blade. Sophia's breath stopped. Claire stepped closer. "And now," Claire whispered, It's too late. The door behind her slammed shut. Sophia's world shrank into darkness.
The room went dark for a split second before the dim chandelier flickered back to life, casting long, eerie shadows across the dining table. Sophia's breath came fast and shallow. Claire stood between her and the only exit, her silhouette sharp as a knife. "You should have kept your head down," Claire murmured, each word dripping like slow poison. Sophia's fingers curled against the wall behind her. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Didn't mean?" Claire's laugh was soft, almost elegant, but utterly unhinged. "You've been snooping, talking to Michael, wandering into parts of the house you were told to avoid." Sophia's pulse crashed against her throat. I was cleaning. Don't lie to me." Claire's eyes hardened. Lies make me impatient. The chandelier flickered again. A cold draft swept through the room, even though the windows were shut. Sophia steadied her voice as best she could. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm only trying to do my job." Claire stepped closer, a slow, predatory glide. "That's the problem. You're doing more than your job." Sophia stiffened. "You're observing," Claire whispered, leaning in as if sharing an intimate secret. "You're thinking, you're feeling things that aren't your place to feel." Sophia held her breath. "And worst of all," Claire said, "you made the children trust you." The air left Sophia's lungs. "You have no idea how dangerous that is," Claire murmured. The chandelier buzzed overhead. Sophia didn't dare speak. Finally, Claire straightened, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the head of the table. "You're going to pack your things tonight," she said calmly. "Mrs. Grace will escort you out by morning. I'll tell Damien you quit. He won't question it." Sophia's mouth trembled open. You're firing me?" "Call it a professional courtesy before you ruin what we're building here." The room went dark for a split second before the dim chandelier flickered back to life, casting long, eerie shadows across the dining table. Sophia's breath came fast and shallow. Claire stood between her and the only exit, her silhouette sharp as a knife. "You should have kept your head down," Claire murmured, each word dripping like slow poison. Sophia's fingers curled against the wall behind her. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Didn't mean?" Claire's laugh was soft, almost elegant, but utterly unhinged. "You've been snooping, talking to Michael, wandering into parts of the house you were told to avoid." Sophia's pulse crashed against her throat. "I was cleaning. Don't lie to me." Claire's eyes hardened. "Lies make me impatient." The chandelier flickered again. A cold draft swept through the room, even though the windows were shut. Sophia steadied her voice as best she could. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm only trying to do my job." Claire stepped closer, a slow, predatory glide. "That's the problem. You're doing more than your job." Sophia stiffened. "You're observing," Claire whispered, leaning in as if sharing an intimate secret. "You're thinking. You're feeling things that aren't your place to feel." Sophia held her breath. "And worst of all," Claire said, "you made the children trust you." The air left Sophia's lungs. "You have no idea how dangerous that is," Claire murmured. The chandelier buzzed overhead. Sophia didn't dare speak. Finally, Claire straightened up, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the head of the table. "You're going to pack your things tonight. Mrs. Grace will escort you out by morning. I'll tell Damien you quit. He won't question it." Sophia's mouth trembled open. You're firing me?" "Called it a professional courtesy before you ruin what we're building here." "What you're building?" Sophia's voice broke. "What did you do to those children?" Claire's head snapped up, eyes blazing. For the first time, her mask cracked. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed.
Sophia took a small step back, fear and fury mixing in her chest. I know enough. Claire closed the distance between them in 2 fast steps and grabbed Sophia by the arm, nails digging into her skin. You know nothing, she whispered, breath hot and trembling with fury. And you will speak of nothing, or I swear— Mrs. Whitmore. Mrs. Grace's voice came from the doorway. Claire froze. She released Sophia's arm instantly and turned with a smile so polished it looked absurd on her face. There you are, she said lightly. I was just giving Sophia her next assignment. Sophia held her arm behind her, hiding the burning crescent marks Claire had left. Mrs. Grace looked between them, her eyes narrowing a fraction, just enough to say she'd seen something, felt something, but she didn't speak on it. Dinner service begins in 30 minutes, the housekeeper said instead. Of course, Claire replied smoothly. Thank you. Mrs. Grace stepped aside to let Claire pass. Claire paused in the doorway and smiled. Sophia will be packing to leave tonight. Make sure she doesn't forget anything. Sophia's heart stopped. Mrs. Grace blinked in visible surprise, but hid it quickly. Yes, ma'am. Claire vanished down the hall, leaving a trail of ice behind her. The moment she was gone, the oppressive weight in the room lifted, just a little. Mrs. Grace exhaled, then turned to Sophia with a face etched in concern. What happened? She whispered urgently. She knows I saw the freezer. She knows I talked to Michael. She wants me gone. Mrs. Grace closed the dining room door quietly, as if the walls themselves could betray them. Sophia, you need to understand something about this house. People don't get fired. They get erased, she whispered. Sophia froze. I've worked here 15 years. Before Claire, before the marriage, before this coldness spread through everything. Her hands shook slightly. Staff disappear, gardeners replaced, drivers who quit, nannies who leave without packing a single suitcase. Sophia's felt the blood drain from her cheeks, and the worst part, she swallowed, her lips trembling, no one ever asks why. A long, heavy silence descended over them. Sophia finally found her voice. Mrs. Grace, what happened to Eden and Miles? The older woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she didn't look away. I don't know, she whispered, but I do know they were happy before Claire came. I know they adored Damien, and I know the last time I saw them, they were afraid. Sophia covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Mrs. Grace continued, her voice cracking. I told myself I didn't see it, that I imagined it, but now, she shook her head, Claire is dangerous. She'll destroy you if you stay. Sophia's heartbeat roared. I can't leave, not when there's a chance those kids are still alive. Mrs. Grace's eyes widened. Sophia! If they're alive, Sophia said, voice rising despite herself, they're somewhere in this house, maybe hidden, maybe trapped, maybe unable to cry for help. How can I walk away? Mrs. Grace pressed a trembling hand to her lips. Sophia stepped closer. Mrs. Grace, please, you said you've been here 15 years. You know the places no one talks about, the rooms that aren't on the maps, the halls that never get cleaned. Tell me where to look. Mrs. Grace looked toward the door nervously, then back to Sophia. I shouldn't, she whispered. If Claire finds out, she already wants me gone. If I don't find those children, I lose nothing. But if I do— Mrs. Grace stared at her a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. There's an old wine cellar that was sealed off years ago, but the lights still work. The freezer wiring runs beneath it. Sophia's heart jumped. And beneath that, she hesitated, there's a sub-basement. No one goes down there. Not staff, not even Mr. Damien. Only Claire has the keys. Sophia felt her throat constrict. What's down there? Mrs. Grace's voice broke.
I don't know. Sophia took a shaky breath. But you think the children might be? I think, Mrs. Grace whispered, that whatever Claire doesn't want people to see, it's down there. Sophia nodded, even though her legs trembled, even though her chest was tight with fear, even though survival instinct screamed at her to run. She nodded. Mrs. Grace reached into her apron pocket and handed her an old iron key, heavy, cold, tarnished with time. Be careful, she whispered. And, Sophia, whatever you do, she swallowed hard, if Claire finds out you have that key, pray that she doesn't. Sophia held the key tightly. And for the first time since she stepped foot into the Whitmore mansion, she felt something other than fear. Resolute. She was going into the sub-basement, where the truth waited, where the children might be, where Claire kept her darkest secrets, and nothing.
Not locked doors, not threats, not a billionaire's fiancé with a smile full of poison would stop her. Not now.
The storm broke sometime after midnight. Not the weather. Los Angeles skies stayed their usual dusty, star-washed calm, but inside the Whitmore mansion, tension cracked like thunder. Every wall, every chandelier, every polished floorboard seemed to vibrate with the aftermath of the confrontation that had nearly torn the family in half. Sophia barely slept. Her small staff room at the back of the mansion felt colder than usual, the thin blanket no match for the chill in her bones. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the echo of the freezer door slamming open, the children's cries, Damien shouting, Claire's voice twisting into something unrecognizable. Her mind replayed it all on a loop. When dawn finally broke, Sophia sat up, exhausted, feeling the weight of what still needed to be done. Because in all the chaos and all the anger, one thing had become painfully clear. Claire was not finished, not even close. Downstairs, the mansion felt unnaturally quiet. The party decorations were gone, replaced with an uneasy stillness that hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Sophia made her way to the kitchen. Mrs. Patel stood at the sink, washing dishes that had already been cleaned twice. She looked up with tired eyes. "You heard," Mrs. Patel whispered. "Heard what?" Sophia asked, though her stomach tightened with dread. "Claire never came home last night." Sophia froze. "What do you mean she never came home?" Mrs. Patel lowered her voice even further. "Damien checked her room at 3 a.m. Empty. Her car is gone. Security cameras caught her leaving the mansion just before midnight." Sophia felt her pulse pick up. That wasn't a grieving fiancé fleeing in shame. That was someone regrouping, someone planning. "She won't disappear," Mrs. Patel murmured. "Women like her don't run, they recalculate." Sophia swallowed hard. That was exactly what she feared. Before she could respond, the clatter of footsteps came from behind. Damien entered the kitchen, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt, tie undone, face streaked with exhaustion. He looked nothing like the confident billionaire from the night before. Now he looked like a man staring at the ruins of his life. "Morning, Mr. Whitmore," Mrs. Patel said carefully. He ignored the greeting. "Sophia," he said, voice strained. "Can we talk? Privately?" Mrs. Patel gave her a sympathetic look as Sophia followed Damien out into the hallway, then into his office. The same office where, last night, Claire nearly convinced him Sophia was the villain. Damien shut the door behind them. "Please, sit." Sophia stayed standing. Damien dragged a hand down his face. "I owe you an apology." "You owe your kids safety," she replied quietly. He winced, as if stabbed by the truth. "You're right. I was blind.
and stubborn and stupid. And you saved them. I can't change what happened, but I can change what I do from this point on." Sophia wanted to believe him, but the children's terrified faces in the freezer were still too fresh. "You know she's not going to let this go," Sophia said. "Claire didn't look shocked when I found the kids. She looked furious." "Yes," Damien said, sinking into the leather chair, "because she thought she could control the narrative, turn everything into an act of martyrdom. And now she can't." "No," he said, "because you shattered her story, and people like Claire don't forgive that." Sophia crossed her arms. "So what happens now?" Damien hesitated. Then he took a deep breath. "I'm pressing charges." "You are?" "Yes. And I'm calling for a restraining order. I've already spoken to my attorney, but Sophia, I need your help." "My help?" Damien leaned forward. "You saw what happened. You found the children. You protected them. And I didn't listen soon enough. Your testimony and your presence matter. You know her patterns now. You know how she lies. You know what she's capable of." Sophia felt her stomach twist. Every instinct in her screamed to say no. She was just a maid, a single mother from Queens who'd come to LA looking for steady income, not a war with a sociopathic fiancé of a billionaire. "I can't get involved in your legal battles," Sophia whispered. "You didn't sign up to save my children either," Damien said quietly. "But you did." Sophia looked away. He wasn't wrong, but fear didn't disappear just because the truth was spoken aloud. "She'll come after me," Sophia said. "I know she will." Damien nodded slowly. "Yes, she probably will, but she won't get far. I've hired private security. They'll protect the children and you." Sophia let out a shaky breath. That wasn't comforting. That was confirmation. Claire was dangerous enough for a billionaire to hire protection. "I'll think about it," she finally said. "That's all I can ask." She turned to leave, but he spoke again. "Sophia." She paused. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." She didn't respond. She simply walked out. By noon, the mansion was buzzing again, but this time with panic instead of luxury. Security personnel walked the halls, the gate guards whispered to each other. The chefs and maids clustered by the pantry, sharing rumors. Everyone was on edge, waiting for something, some blowback, some disaster, some explosion of consequences. Sophia checked in on the kids. They were in the playroom, curled up on the couch watching cartoons. Mateo sat quietly with his arms around Lucy, his eyes still swollen from tears. Lucy leaned against him, thumb in her mouth, expression blank and distant. "Hey, sweet peanuts," she said softly, kneeling beside them. Lucy reached for her shirt sleeve. "So, cold." "I know, baby, but you're safe now. No more cold." Mateo looked up, voice trembling. "Is Claire coming back?" She forced her voice to stay steady. "No, she won't hurt you again." He leaned into her side and she held both children close, feeling the tremor still running through their small bodies. She wasn't going anywhere, not until she knew they were truly safe. But safety didn't last long. At 3:12 p.m., a black Audi rolled slowly past the mansion gates. Not a resident, not a delivery, not a guest. Security cameras caught the plate. The guard radioed in immediately.
Sophia happened to be walking through the foyer when the guard captain stepped inside, face pale. "Mr. Whitmore, we need you at the gate. It's her." Sophia's heart plummeted. She followed instinctively. Damien rushed out with 2 guards flanking him. On the security monitor, a woman with perfectly styled hair and sunglasses sat behind the wheel of the Audi. Claire. She didn't try to enter, she didn't speak, she didn't look afraid. She simply raised one hand and blew a kiss toward the camera. Sophia's skin crawled. Claire put the car in drive and slowly pulled away from the estate. "She's not running," Damien whispered. Sophia swallowed hard. "No, she's circling." He turned to her, expression tight with fear. "This is the turning point." Sophia exhaled shakily. She knew he was right. Claire wasn't done. She was just getting started. "Then we better be ready," Sophia said. Because the final storm hadn't hit yet, but it was coming. And when it did, no one, not the billionaire, not the staff, not even the mansion itself, would escape untouched.
The sun dipped behind the Los Angeles skyline, washing the Whitmore mansion in a deep gold that felt almost mocking. The world outside looked calm, beautiful even, while inside, every soul waited for a storm no one could predict. Only fear. Security doubled its presence. The gates stayed locked. The children stayed glued to Sophia's side. But none of it felt like enough. Not when Claire was still out there. Not when she'd driven by the mansion with the same calm confidence as someone checking the time. Not when her last gesture, a blown kiss toward the camera, felt less like a threat and more like a promise. By evening, Sophia could feel it in her bones. The air was too still, the halls too quiet, the staff too tense. Mrs. Patel's hand shook as she washed vegetables. Emmanuel, the driver, kept glancing toward the windows. Even the children sensed it. Lucy clung to Sophia's shirt, and Mateo stayed within arm's reach of her, refusing to let his father leave the room. "Sophia?" whispered Mateo. "She won't come inside, right?" "Not tonight, sweetheart. Not ever again." She wished she believed her own words. At 8:06 p.m., it began. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. A third time. Then the power snapped off completely, swallowing the mansion in instant darkness. Sophia's heart dropped into her stomach. "No," Damien murmured, standing abruptly. "This can't be a coincidence." A beat of silence hovered over the room like a held breath. Then, boom! A deafening explosion of shattering glass echoed from the east wing. Sophia clutched the children and ducked instinctively. Damien shouted, "Security! Status report now!" The radios crackled with frantic voices. "East window breach! Sensors triggered in the guest hallway! She's inside! Repeat, she's inside!" Sophia's blood ran cold. Claire wasn't circling anymore. She was here. Sophia grabbed Mateo and Lucy, lifting Lucy into her arms as the emergency lights flickered on, dim red beams barely cutting through the shadows. "Go to the panic room," Damien ordered, voice shaking despite the authority. "It's the safest place in the house." Sophia didn't argue. She sprinted down the hallway, heart pounding, every instinct screaming at her to get the children out of sight. Mateo clung to her hand, stumbling to keep up. Behind them, footsteps thundered, voices shouted, alarms wailed. The mansion had descended into chaos.
Another crash sounded, this time closer. Claire's voice floated through the dark hall, cold and lilting. "Sophia, sweetheart, where are you hiding?" Lucy whimpered into Sophia's shoulder. Sophia didn't look back. "Keep running," she whispered to Matteo. "Don't stop." They turned a corner, nearly colliding with two security guards. "Ma'am, this way!" But before they could move, a scream ripped through the mansion. Not a child, not Sophia, a guard. Followed by another crash. And then, Claire's voice again, soft and sing-song. "You think you can take my family from me? You think you can erase me?" Sophia squeezed the kids closer and ran. The panic room door slid open as they approached. Damien was right behind them, ushered forward by two guards who looked more terrified than trained. "Hurry," Damien urged. Sophia pushed Matteo and Lucy through the steel doorway, but before she could step inside herself, a shadow broke from the dark hallway. Claire, her hair wild, her makeup smeared, her eyes blazing with something feral and triumphant. In her hand was a heavy silver candle holder, stolen from one of the mansion's display tables. And she moved fast, too fast. She charged. Sophia felt the air leave her lungs as she shoved the children all the way inside the panic room. "Close it!" she screamed. "Now!" One guard hit the lock release, but Claire was inches away. She swung the candle holder toward Sophia's head with a shriek. Sophia ducked. The metal slammed into the wall instead, denting it. Claire screamed like an animal, pulling back for another strike. And Damien, without hesitation, grabbed the heavy crystal vase from the hallway table and smashed it across Claire's arm. Claire howled in pain, stumbling back. The door hissed shut, but not before Claire hurled herself forward. Her hand shot through the narrowing gap, fingers clawing for purchase, nails scraping the steel. For one terrifying second, Sophia saw her face inches away, contorted with rage, spittle on her lips, eyes wide with unhinged fury. "You ruined everything!" Claire shrieked. "They were supposed to die! They were supposed to die for him! You don't deserve—" The door sealed with a final heavy clunk. Claire's scream cut off abruptly. Darkness. Silence. Just their ragged breathing and the hum of the panic room's ventilation. Matteo burst into sobs. Lucy clung to Sophia like her life depended on it. Sophia held both of them close, trembling. Damien leaned against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor, face buried in his hands. No one spoke for several minutes. Finally, Sophia whispered, "She wasn't here to scare us. She was here to finish what she started." Damien lifted his head, eyes filled with horror, guilt, and something else. Resolute. "She's arrested," he said finally. "She'll never see daylight again." Outside, they could hear guards shouting, heavy footsteps, radios blaring commands. Claire's scream, one last bone-chilling cry of fury, echoed faintly down the hall as security dragged her away. But inside the panic room, something shifted. The storm was ending, and the reckoning had arrived. It took nearly an hour before the all-clear was given. When the panic room door finally opened, the mansion looked like a crime scene. Broken glass, overturned tables, blood on the marble from where a guard had been struck. Claire was gone, handcuffed, sedated, screaming obscenities as the police took her away. The children refused to let go of Sophia. Damien refused to let them out of his sight. Reporters swarmed the gates within minutes, helicopters circling the estate. The story exploded online. Billionaire's fiancé arrested after attempted homicide. Children rescued from freezer. Inside the mansion of terror. But inside, where the truth mattered most, the Whitmore family huddled together. Not in wealth, not in luxury, but in relief. In survival. Sophia stroked Lucy's hair as the little girl finally fell asleep in her lap. Matteo dozed against her shoulder. Her uniform was torn, her knees scraped, and exhaustion pressed on her like a weight. Damien kneeled beside them. "Sophia," he said quietly, "I know this is a lot, but I need to say this. You didn't just save my children." Sophia looked up. "You saved me," he whispered. She blinked, startled. "I would have married a monster. I would have put my children's lives in her hands, and I would have lost everything that mattered." She said nothing, just listened. "So from today on," Damien said, voice firm, "I will do things differently. Starting with this, you're no longer an employee in this house." Sophia's brows lifted. I don't understand." "Your family," Damien said, "whether you want to be or not." Sophia felt her throat tighten. Matteo stirred in her arms, whispering softly, half asleep, So saved us." And in that moment, Sophia realized this wasn't the end of a nightmare. It was the beginning of a new life for all of them. The final reckoning had passed, and what remained was a future built not on fear or lies or appearances, but on truth, on healing, and on the bond forged in the coldest moment of their lives. A bond no freezer, no lie, no monster could ever break.